you're telling me in the 10 Commandments, it was more important to obey your parents than he could have slipped in an 11 and said, hey, by the way, don't own people.
All right. Everyone, thank you for another episode of Atheists Having Cocktails with Christians. I finally got another gentleman I've been trying to get for a while, Mr. Jeff Bellew from The Crucified, Stavesacre, Mortal, Chatterbox.
There you go.
His new project, Bloodguilt, which I've only heard a couple songs, and it's very cool, old style hardcore punk rock. That's what your fancy is, which that's my favorite. I grew up on that kind of stuff. So
right.
I want to thank Jeff for taking this time out of the day and
yeah, man.
Interview, man. So how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you. Just got done cleaning the house, just chilling and ready to hang out with you, man.
Nice. Well, I'm not going to go into a lot of the standard old questions. If anybody wants to, my friend Jeremy from the Rumors Are True podcast did you a few months ago, where he really went into a lot of the detail of the old Crucified and that stuff. And I think that stuff's really been documented quite a bit. So I'm going to touch on a few things a little bit, but not going to get into the whole back story of everything, because everybody go watch that episode of Jeremy's the podcast, and you'll hear a lot more of the old school stuff than what
that was a deep dive, man. We went for how long? It was like 2.5 hours or something like that. It was gnarly.
it was a great interview, but that's already been hashed out. I kind of do it a little bit different. So if anybody doesn't know anything about the Crucified or Stavesacre, all that kind of stuff, check out Jeremy's podcast. The Rumors Are True. Super great interview. So I'm going to just start a little bit backstory. Before you joined the Crucified, you're from Southern California, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Same here. I'm from Ventura. That's where I grew up.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So,
yeah. Little north of me. Whenever someone's not from Southern California, I just say I was born and raised in Long Beach. But if you're from Southern California, I'll say Lakewood, because you're probably at least familiar with. When I lived in Colorado for 7 years, if I said Lakewood, they thought I meant Lakewood, Colorado. So yeah. But yeah, same general area. You were like, what, an hour north of me, maybe?
Yeah.
Depending on traffic.
Yeah, depending on traffic, definitely. My first was a big Crucified fan. Actually, I've told this story to the other guys in the band. The first time I saw you guys was at the Reseda Country Club with Scattered Few and Deliverance.
Yes. So I still have a video of that show.
Do you really?
I have a videotape of that. The entire Scattered Few and the Crucified. I didn't record Deliverance, but I have a full VHS of that entire concert.
You need to digitize that and put it.
I should.
Great.
Yeah, it's good.
That was my first time seeing you guys play, because like I said, living in Ventura, a lot of the shows really if it wasn't Hollywood based, I really couldn't make a lot of them, because a lot of shows were in Santa Ana or a little bit further south. So I was 14 at the time, so I didn't have a problem.
Right.
I relied on the kindness of my folks to drive the shows if they would. So so how long had you been in the Crucified at that point in time? Because Pillars, I don't think Pillars was out yet, or it had just come out.
I think it was just coming out. So by then I'd probably been in the band a year and a half, 2 years, because I joined before the first album came out. They had just finished recording it, and then I joined. So I was there for the entire release of that album, and touring, which meant playing 2 shows on the way to Cornerstone and 2 shows back. Back then, there wasn't a way for us to do that, but so I'd been in the band a while. We didn't even start working on new songs till that album had been out a minute. So
I've heard you tell the story of you posting the ad looking for members, like the Crucified Vengeance and whatnot. Roger Del Martin reaching out to you.
Mm-hmm. No, Roger reached out to Jim.
Or to Jim, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I just got back from Vegas Monday and finally got to hang out with Larry Farkas.
Oh, nice. He's a good dude.
Jimmy Brown's a buddy of mine, so we all met up for cocktails and whatnot. So
nice.
Yeah. So he always talked really, really well on all you guys. He always said, Larry's like, the Crucified were my favorite band to always play with and whatnot.
Yeah, they were good dudes, man. I liked hanging out with those guys.
Yeah. Now, were you specifically, when you placed an ad, were you looking for a Christian band, or you were just looking for a band, but that's some stuff you dug?
So like, I'll tell the short version. I was looking for a band. I kept trying bands, and the ad, you could always put 3 bands, and I would put, DRI, Corrosion Conformity, Cryptic Slaughter, whatever I was into, like right at that moment. Um, and then just nothing ever worked out. So I changed the ad, and it was still like, I think it was DRI and Corrosion Conformity. And then I put the Crucified in because I was like, I should look for people who are into this stuff. Because, at the time I was like, well, I'm a Christian. Maybe I'll find some other Christian dudes that care about this. And my thought was, if they know the Crucified, they're like really into Christian punk and hardcore. Because like, if you put Undercover, you're going to get a bunch of dudes that think Undercover is punk rock. No offense, I love Undercover, um, but yeah, I just put it, and
It wasn't punk rock. It wasn't.
Yeah, they had a couple of songs that were, you'd like play God Rules over and over and over again and convince yourself that was punk rock. But yeah, I figured if someone knew the Crucified, they were kind of down with where I was headed as well. And then that was the ad that Roger saw.
Right.
Yeah.
So at that point, you were still at this point, are you still a Christian, or what's your?
No.
Okay.
It's been a few years now. It's a long, slow journey into opening up and questioning things that you had been kind of taught not to question. And like most atheists I know, I've only really recently become comfortable with that term in describing myself. Before I was kind of hanging on to the agnostic thing, and maybe I had heard someone on a podcast once call themselves a hopeful agnostic, which I thought was like a cool term. It's like, yeah, I'm open to the possibilities. And I mean, I still am. Someone wants to provide any sort of proof for the supernatural. I just haven't seen it myself. Yeah. So yeah, at that time, I definitely would have been a self-described Christian. I really was into it. I really thought, I mean, even in the Crucified, even in the beginning of Stavesacre, it was like, yeah, this is like a mission. We're doing something. And then, I read the entire Bible, like most atheists I know, and a lot of stuff in here that really doesn't add up. So yeah.
Have you found that maybe some of your base of fans that are really hardcore about Crucified Stavesacre and whatnot have you got any backlash, or has this really been like one of your first public, like, yeah guys, I'm not a Christian anymore?
No, I went on a podcast called Heretic Party, which is a couple of dudes, ex-Christians. They're based out of Denver. I had heard a couple of episodes, and at one point, one of them, they did an episode about Christian bands that still hold up even after you're not a Christian anymore. And Stavesacre was on it.
Definitely.
And so,
great band.
Yeah, so I reaced out to him, just sent an email. Hey, I've been listening since the first episode, because I think they were less than 10 episodes in. And said, yeah, it was really cool as part of one of those bands, but who no longer, describes themselves as a believer. I thought it was really fun. And we ended up contacting and hanging out a few times. And they had me on the podcast. And that would have been the first time it came up. Like, I did the Rumors Are True since then, and it just didn't come up. If you want to talk about that, great. If you don't, great.
Yeah.
I posted that I had been on that Heretic Party podcast, expecting, some backlash, and I didn't hear anything. I had a few people reach out and go, "Oh wow, man, your journey is kind of similar to mine," or "Oh wow, I didn't know you were there," or whatever. But if anyone has a problem with it, they haven't reached out to me. But also, if I'm being honest, only place I would really expect to get that is like Facebook, where all the horrible people hang out, and I don't go on there much. And the last couple elections have helped me really weed those people out of my life. So, even yeah, like I have a few friends, like Brian Gray from The Blamed and Mortal when I was in it, and we're still really good friends. He actually just moved not far from me about a month ago, which I'm super stoked about, that we're going to get to hang out a lot. We hung out, and he totally got it, wasn't even a jerk about it, although he got me good. We sat down like to have some food together and hang out, and he's like, "Should I say grace?" And I kind of look up at him. He's just got this big cheesy grin, like, gotcha.
Yeah. Old habits,
Yeah, he was just messing with. He knew he was just messing with me. But yeah, I haven't really heard anything. I haven't really talked to anyone super close about it, because I don't know, man, it just doesn't really come up.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need to like go, hey, by the way.
Yeah. I think there's such, I'm on Facebook, mostly for my business to promote and whatnot, but I follow a few pages. And what's really just striking about Christians, either our age today or these new Christians, are they don't realize the idol worship that they're giving the musicians. When I remember being, before I found, extreme music, when Striper went, unchristian, I was like devastated because I was a young Christian going, oh man, but then as I've gotten older, I was like, man, I wasn't looking to Jesus for anything. I was looking to Striper for it.
Right.
I was putting that idol, on those guys, and those guys were more important to me than honestly than church was, because it was tangible and it was something I could really see and hold and listen to. So yeah, it's I see a lot of really, really nasty comments on people where, I think it's just weird at this point in this country. We're not at a place where we can just have a conversation. It has to be a fight. It has to be a battle. It can't be just you live your way, I live my way, and let's just
right.
So I agree. I'm kind of trying to stay away out of the Facebook drama and whatnot. I mean, I get tons of people that comment on my show. I mean, I've interviewed Roger Martinez a few times, and Jimmy, and Mark was great, Jeff was great, Jim was great, Alan from Scattered Few. I mean, everybody, all the guys I've had have been great interviews and whatnot. But I get some pretty snarky emails, and
I'm sure. Yeah.
How can you fall away from this? You seem this or this, but also people. I was a kid, I was. And that's the thing, I think that, the scene, the industry, whatever, or churches put probably so much pressure on you guys to live this certain way, being a band and being the light in the darkness, that at 20 years old, who could live up to anything like that? You're not even a real adult yet. You're still figuring life out, and you haven't really, maybe you've had some experiences, but you're still just trying to be the best person you can be.
Right. Yeah. At the end of the day, man, and this is conversations we didn't ever have in the Crucified, because we were so young and really felt that pressure, but we put it on ourselves as well, like to be this thing, which is why, the band broke up because Greg got his girlfriend pregnant. Yeah. Which nowadays, I don't even think most bands wouldn't even put a press release about that. It would just be like, oh, this happened. You know what I mean? It's like life goes on.
Yeah.
But in Stage Acre, we had that conversation. I was like, dude, we're just dudes in a band. Yeah, we all happen to be Christians, but we got it. But Mark always felt pressure to say something from stage. Whether it's like, dude, you don't need to preach. You can say stuff if it feels right, if there's something pressed on you, but you don't have to. And that was a big struggle, and it caused a lot of tension. And you do love Mark to death. I'm not putting him down. We were part of the problem too. We constantly pushed back against him, like, dude, just shut up. Let's just play our show and go.
Yeah.
It just caused a lot of drama that didn't need to be there. It just did. We were just dudes that wanted to play music, whatever that looked like at the time. You know what I mean? And we still do. Like, we haven't played together in a few years now, since what was that? Furnace Fest a few years ago was the last time Stage Acre played. But if the right opportunity presented itself and those guys called me, I would be there in a heartbeat. They're four of my favorite people in the world. I would, you know what I mean? And getting to do those Bloodguilt shows just a couple of months ago, it was like, dude, I still love doing this. I feel old when I do it now.
Yeah.
But it's still one of my favorite things to do, is to get together with some good friends and just play some music that I love.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be more than that.
Well, yeah. Unless you want it to be,
Sure. And if you do, great. Good for you. And if you don't, good for you. But at the end of the day, if it's a band, the first question is the music good?
Yes.
That should be the first question, not like, what is their testimony? What is any other thing? Is the music good? Because that's the thing that used to drive me crazy, even when I was like on fire, is I would see these bands where I was like, dude, they kind of suck, but everyone loved them because they had this great ministry. I'm like, that's cool. Go be a pastor somewhere, because you're not a great band. And I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to get into the mudslinging. Yeah. But it just drove me crazy that, we'd be at Cornerstone and there'd be these, oh man, I can't wait to see you so-and-so. And I'd be sitting there going, really? Have you heard them? They're terrible. And they're objectively, there's like stuff that's like just not your thing, right?
Right.
Like DC Talk played Cornerstone once, not my thing at all.
Right.
But they were really nice guys.
Yeah.
We ended up being straight across from them on the merch booth thing. They have like 3 huge spaces, all this DC Talk merch, and we ended up hanging out. We ended up trading them some merch, and because they were so cool, I walked down to the main stage to watch your show, and for one song, they all wore crucified beanies that we had given them. I was like, oh, that's really cool, man. It's like not my thing, but they were really good at it.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really talk crap. I would never be like, oh, screw them, they suck. No, they don't. They are really good at what they do. It's just not what I'm into.
Totally. Yeah,
but then there was other bands,
ability without getting into it.
Oh, 100%. There's tons of people that are like that. I mean, there's a million musicians in the world. You're not going to like all of it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like when Truth and Nail first hit. I mean, they had really, when they got big, they had so many artists on the, you guys and, Strong Arm and, Clank. And I mean, they had a really good variety of people, but there's a lot of Tooth and Nail. Like I know kids back there in California that if had a Tooth and Nail logo, man, they'd buy it no matter what.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And for me, it was like, I always want to check it out. Like not to talk bad on it. Just some of those bands were just not my style.
Sure.
Like I thought they were doing what they did. It just, I wasn't into it and couldn't, sure. I wouldn't go see them play. I wouldn't pay to see them play.
Yeah, exactly. But that was the cool thing, is that Brandon kind of didn't pigeonhole himself. You know what I mean? He made sure that, like, well, first of all, I think he tried to make sure they were good bands, and then, but it wouldn't be for everyone that liked, not everyone who liked, if you're just going for the first 3 records, what was it? Wish for Eden, Starflyer, and Focused.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right there, that's a huge swath. Now, I'm sure at the time, a lot of kids were just like, oh, and bought them all. And personally, I like them all.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty big swing for a label. Instead of putting out 3 bands that sound kind of like Wish for Eden, or 3 bands that sound like Starflyer, or 3 bands that sound like Focus. Yeah. He was like, I'm going to do everything. And then pretty soon he's got everything from Under Oath to Danielson to, I mean, that, talk about a swing between, and he's got Pedro the Lion and Living Sacrifice. That's, he's just swinging for, some people could be cynical and say he was like looking for the thing that stuck, but I don't think so, because I hung out with Brandon a lot back in the day. He's just a music lover, and he just likes a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? I think that's rad. That's what you want in a label head, is someone who actually likes music. Get into the politics of him just making money off people. It's like, well, it is a business.
Yeah,
it's what he was doing. There was I don't think he ever made a secret that he was trying to make money with the label.
Yeah. I think that was a refreshing thing with Tooth and Nail, was that it seemed just more of a label for Christian artists and a Christian label for Christians.
Agreed.
Have to be, this the sanctuary tab inside, every cassette saying, hey, let us pray with you. You know what I mean? It was
right.
We're just putting out Christian music, and it should be top quality. Right. One of those bands, like the later years of Tooth and Nail, by that time I was, full on atheist. And honestly, the years I was listening to a lot of the early Tooth and Nail stuff was in my, I was 18, 19, 20 at the time, still living in Southern California, and it was everywhere. I still had a ton of Christian friends, even though, I'd still go to church every now and then with somebody, just because I always had, for a long, long time, I just had that little thing in the back of my mind, like, what if I'm wrong? Maybe I'm just going to hedge my bet, but again, I was a 20-year-old kid.
Right.
So
you'd also been inundated with hellfire and brimstone your whole life. Of course you're going to feel that way.
Exactly. And there, I will say, there is some sort of a comfort in the tribal kind of thing of everybody getting together, the pack, feel safe in the pack, and then when you're in that pack, you're just out on your own trying to figure out your own life, and you find your other pack, and that makes more sense. But a lot of those other bands, like I just never listened to or got into, because also for me, like, posted all these bands, I'm like, dude, how does it get all these people? I'm like, half the bands I wouldn't even know how to talk to them, because I wouldn't know what their music is. Right. I haven't listened to that scene or been in that part of that scene for 25, 30 years now.
Sure.
So that's where I'm just kind of talking to the old guys like me, that, are doing, that did the music that I enjoyed. But Stoked was one of those bands that didn't matter if you guys were full on evangelical. Your guys' music is fantastic.
Well, thank you.
You know?
Yeah, really proud of that stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
I was,
How did the Chatterbox album happen?
oh man, so Chatterbox was an idea I had even while the Crucified was still going. I was working on like putting together demos and stuff. I borrowed a drum machine from Greg and was just writing the stuff that was didn't really fit the Crucified. Actually, one of the songs almost became a Crucified song.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of changed it. It was weird. I showed him the demo. We kind of turned it into a Crucified song, and then the Crucified broke up, and I turned it back into a Chatterbox song. But it was different. I feel like it's a better. It's the song Epinosis.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a better song because it kind of went through this filter. It was, just got lucky that those guys helped me kind of fine tune it. But yeah, I just had the demos when Brandon was first. I was in Mortal at the time, and that demo was kind of circulating because I'd recorded a 3-song demo with Gyro and Jerome. Mm-hmm. 3 of the songs that ended up on the album, and pretty rough, but it sounded good. And at the time, Brandon was still working for what label was that, Frontline or whatever he was, and he asked me about signing. And at that time, I didn't like the way some of the drama that I had heard about Gyro and Jerome talking about their label, so I was like, yeah, no way. And then when he started Tooth and Nail, I kind of helped him. I produced that first Focus record, his first sales conference where I had to go to the distributors and kind of sell him this idea of Tooth and Nail because it's brand new. I went. It was me and Brandon. He talked about Wish for Eden and Starflyer, and I talked about Focus. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, hey, I still have that demo if and that's how, yeah, because it's the 7th record on Tooth and Nail. It was early on, but shoestring budget, but we got it done and did it at the green room like everyone did back then, and it was a blast. But that's how it came to be. It was just ideas I had laying around forever. And my buddy, oh my God, Garrett. I almost forgot his name. Just a buddy I knew in Fresno who was in another band that played with the Crucified a lot if we played local shows. Mm. He just kind of helped me. He was better with the drum machine than I was. So he helped me like write, like, hey, I got a new song. And I'd go over his house. We'd spend all night like piecing it together on the drum machine. So I had all the demos. When it kind of was coming to fruition with Brandon, I sent it all to Scott, sent all the demos, Clay, sent it all to Clay. And he did the programming, which honestly, I mean, that record, I love that record. Yeah. It's a record I still listen to. It wouldn't be the same without him. The stuff he did on the drum machines and all the samples and stuff, it took the cool riffs and stuff and took it to that next level. The guy's just a musical genius. I mean, he's still doing it, Cell Dweller and what's his other one, Scandroid, which is awesome. Like,
I've heard that.
Oh yeah. It's like, especially the first Scandroid, it's kind of like imagine him through an 80s lens. Like really, yeah, it's really cool. He does a cover of Thriller that's awesome. Yeah, dude, you got to check it out. Scandroid.
I'm gonna check it out today. That's awesome. Good. Yeah, I only got to see Mortal once, and I saw we were talking Wish for Eden once. I saw him when they opened up for you guys at the Roxy with it was you guys, Betrayal, Wish for Eden, Mortal, and then Nicene Creed, Carl's band that ended up being everywhere. I was there that night when MC Colorblind hopped up and they did their rap. So I only got to see Mortal once, which I really still dig. Wish for Eden was they were the grungy flavor of that just was never my thing. Yeah,
they kind of had that. They were halfway between grungy and a little bit Helmet.
Yeah,
just the start, stop, drop D riffs, which I thought was cool. Plus Rob Walker, just what a beautiful human being. Right. I mean, I just back when he was in Mortal, we hung out a lot. I mean, the Mortal guys and us, but especially Rob and I, both big dudes, so we were just like throwed down and big dude code.
Oh yeah.
And that's funny that you mentioned the Nicene Creed thing because I hung out with Carl a lot back then, and I gotta say that was the one. I'm usually pretty good at this sound is going to be really big. The whole rap rock thing just missed me. When he started telling me about what they wanted to do with everyday life, I was like, why? Yeah. Like, I don't get it. Is this a thing? And then, obviously I was completely wrong because then, and then POD, and then, look at the state of the world. There was huge bands. It just wasn't my thing. And I love rock and I love rap. It just, I didn't get it. It's still never been my favorite thing, even though I love a lot of the guys in those bands.
Yeah.
I just don't really, you know, it just wasn't a sound that hit my ears the right way. But
And I hear it.
Wish them all the best in the world. I'm glad they got to do it. They,
Yeah, for me, like Body Count, I dig. I'll always dig Body Count. Everyday Life I like, but like I never got into POD. A friend of mine bought me their tape years ago when they first came out, the Snuff the Punk record, and I literally, and nothing against POD, I know people love them, and that was a young record, but it for me it was just so cheesy and lame, and it had some devil, Jesus guy. I was getting jacked by that. I was like, what the fuck is this?
I produced that record.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. When I went down there, when they asked me to do it, I was like, we had 3 days in the studio, and I'm like, let's just record a really good demo.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna record an album. And I was like, all right. And then, I mean, dude, when I tell people, if that ever comes up in conversation, I'm like, yeah, I produced their first record. They're like, oh, the one with the live. I'm like, no. Like 3 albums before that, you've never heard it.
Yeah.
And it's not amazing, but it got their foot in the door, and they got to do what they do.
Just for me, just that kind of stuff was not for me. Never had it. I've just never liked it.
I absolutely love those guys.
Yeah.
They are. Whenever I run into them, just the smiles and the hugs and the bro. I mean, I've known them since they were little kids when they were opening for the Crucified. I love them.
Yeah.
But I don't ever put their music on. It's just not for me. They're really good at it.
Yeah.
Really good at it. I mean, the records they've sold and the tours they've done show that. It's just not a style that hits my ears the right way. That's that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. There were just so many bands like that, just in the Christian realm, that just it seemed like they had to be this the secular version of this to make it in this realm.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's just, I'm with you. It wasn't. So tell me about Bloodguilt. How did that band form? What's going on with that?
So it started like as a kernel of an idea a long time ago. It started, I was talking to Dirk on the phone. He said that he had been talking to Alex Albert, drummer from Project 86, and was like, hey, we just been talking, like, wouldn't it be fun just to do some old school hardcore, the stuff we grew up on? Like, yeah, it sounds great, man. I hope you guys do it. In the back of my head going, I don't want to do it, but not wanting to be that guy to like jump on their project.
Yeah.
And so, we'd be talking about whatever, and that would come up again. Yeah, we kind of been talking about, and it was all just talking. There was no trading of music. It was just, wouldn't it be cool? Hey, we should do this. We're trying to, the main thing we're trying to think is who could we get as a singer? So we would brainstorm a million guys we knew who could do it, who would sound cool, who could do like the vibe that they wanted.
Yeah.
And then finally he was like, they had a friend that connected them to the singer from He Is Legend. And so he was going to do, was it Skylar Kroom, I believe is his name? If I'm saying that wrong, I'm so sorry and so
I'm not familiar with that all.
Yeah. So he was going to do it for like a second. And at that point it was like, oh, so it might kind of happen. And that's when Dirk said, would you want to do it? And I said, yes, of course. I've been waiting for you to ask me.
Yeah.
And then we kind of traded a few things, and then it just kind of fell apart again. But by then I'd written a few songs. So then it was like, Alex was talking to Dirk, and he mentioned Ray. Now, Dirk knew Ray because the band Taken, who's Orange County based, and we knew, but also because he had been the A&R guy for Stavesacre when they did I think it was the How to Live with a Curse album. That sounds right to me. It wasn't the self-titled, it was the How to Live with a Curse. And so he knew Ray that way. And Ray had even been instrumental in helping us get the masters back when that was going on. He had reached out to Ray and helped him. So they had maintained a friendship. And so Dirk just mentioned, I think Alex went and listened to Taken, was like, dang, this guy can yell. And Alex, not even really knowing Ray, just reached out to him like, hey, we're doing this thing. Dirk. I know Dirk. We're doing this thing. Here's a couple of little riffs that we've written. What do you think? And I think at that point, maybe Steve Dale had gotten involved. Steve, also the bass player from Project, who's now the other guitar player in Bloodguilt. He had gotten involved just helping Alex track drums on some of these demos. And Ray said, yeah, I'll do it. So then we were like, oh, crap. So we put together the best songs we had, sent them down. I recorded all my stuff out in Denver. Dirk recorded all his stuff at his house in Atlanta. Steve's a really good producer, put it all together. And then Ray recorded. And then, man, I gotta say, Ray is just the man who knows everybody. His podcast has taken him a lot of places. He's the 100 Words podcast.
I've heard it.
Yeah, and he also they did the Outbreak Fest, which is a huge hardcore fest in Europe.
Yeah,
and he ran the official podcast. So basically, he interviewed all the bands there.
Wow.
And he's just been in that world a long time, and he just knows a ton of people. Taken has played with a ton of people. He knows everybody. So then it was like, as we're recording it, we're thinking the whole time we've been thinking we'll record it, we'll all pull some money together, put it out, and see what we can get it to do, right? Mm-hmm. Ray's right away like, I'm gonna reach out to this guy, and this guy who own this label, and this label, and then see who wants to put it out. We're like, dude, no one's gonna want to put out an album for a band that technically doesn't even really exist. We've never been in the same room together.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't meet Ray, our singer, until our first show.
Oh, wow.
Or the night before we were rehearsing, because we never ran in the same circles, and this whole thing came together virtually. So when we were literally, it was done, recorded, already pressed on vinyl, and he comes walking in the room like, hey, nice to meet you, man.
Yeah. Good
yeah. So he got New Age Records, which is an old school California hardcore label, put out the early Broken stuff, put out this, I mean, just a label we all loved coming up. We're like, what do you mean New Age wants to put out our record? What are you talking about? You know, freaking, the Outspoken was on New Age, Unbroken was on New Age. What are you talking about? Yeah, Mike wants to do it, man. He loves it. We're like, okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then it's like he reached out to Bo, who's from Seosin, who is now a bit of a producer himself. He's done some things. If you look up his credits, he's done some records you would definitely have heard of.
Okay.
And got the sweetheart deal of like, hey, I'm working, you know, could you mix it for us? And he was like, well, I've got this band that only works certain hours, so I kind of have some time in the evenings. And that's why it sounds so good, is we got this guy who's been doing this for a long time. It just Raise connections, man. They just run deep. It's crazy. Right. And yeah, I'm proud of a lot of the music I put out. This one's I'm proud of as well, but in a kind of different way. It's just kind of special to me because Dirk and I have been friends like almost 40 years now. And to like some music, like I took Dirk to his first hardcore show in 80 something. I think he was 14 when I took him to his first hardcore show, because I'm 6 years older than him. He was my pastor's son. He was just like a kid I knew, but he was the kid at the church that like I could see was getting into the cool stuff. So we just started hanging out.
Yeah.
And, you know, I started taking him, took him to, you know, there's I know I'm kind of jumping around here. Sorry.
No.
There's a Crucified videotape that you can see Dirk and I in the front row before I joined the band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's like old school. So like, yeah. So I took him to his first hardcore show. We would sit in our, you know, we'd go to Zed Records and buy things and come home and listen to them together. And, you know, he started getting into bands, and I was, you know, when I joined the Crucified, I had to drive up to Fresno, which is like a 3.5 hour drive from Southern California.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I was like, dude, can I bring a friend or something? I've never driven that far from home by myself. That's kind of weird. So Dirk went with me my first weekend meeting the Crucified, and
I bet he was ecstatic, and he was like, oh,
yeah,
you know?
He was stoked. Yeah, he got to hang out, listen to me, you know, try out for the band, and then yeah. So we've just been together forever. So to finally, I mean, dude, I'll say finally do some music we love. That sounds wrong, because Stave Zaker is music we love, and we've been doing it a long time. But just this really special thing of like, I think a friend of ours put it the best. Our friend Andrew, who was in that second album iteration of Focused.
Right.
He's also gone on to do bands like Le Shock and some other really cool stuff since then. He sent me a message because he heard it was coming out, and I sent him the pre-release so he could hear it. And he's like, wow, man, you know, back in the day, you were kind of the most core of all of us. Like, you knew all the bands. You were older, so you kind of had the head start on us. Isn't it funny that it only took you 35 years to put out a hardcore album? But that's how it feels. It's like kind of came full circle to putting out where I started, you know, and that's what makes it kind of really special, is like, getting to take my oldest friend and do something that we've always wanted to do, but was always like, wouldn't it be fun? Wouldn't this be cool? But you know, those things happen all the time. You're on the road with other bands. Oh, we should do, and they never happen. I was talking to a buddy. He goes, "Yeah, I think I'm in 3 of those bands right now. You know, those like dream project bands, but this one actually happened."
That's great.
And then yeah, we got to play a couple of shows down in SoCal, and they went amazing. It was so fun, man. I can't. They're constant. There's a every band has a text thread, and they're constantly throwing, "Hey, we should try to jump on this show." We try to. It's just hard. We're separated. And Dirk lives in Nashville now. I'm still here in Portland. The other guys are in SoCal. So if we're going to do it, there's a lot of moving parts to get that to happen. So
definitely, I loved, especially when you were in the Crucified and even in Dave's Acre, man, I always loved your guitar, your bass tone. You were, especially with Crucified, your tone always reminded me of Craigerhead from Sick of It All,
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. Always, the way you played always had a very Sick of It All feel to it, which is, I'd say, probably my favorite New York hardcore band.
Of course.
Yeah. And then with Dave's Acre, you definitely had you were the guitar player, so it was Dirk that was the bass player.
Correct. Dirk was bass, and I moved back. I was always a guitar player. Okay. I jumped to bass because the Crucified didn't need a guitar player. In fact, when they called me, Jim was like, "Do you know how to play bass?" When that whole Roger Dale Martin thing, I just was like, "Yeah." Total lie. I had never touched a bass, but my head was like, "It's 2 less strings. How hard can it be?"
Yeah, I'll figure it out. What would you say like your main like old school hardcore influences were that were not Christian? Like, what are some of your favorite like hardcore bands?
I mean, top of the mountain for me is Minor Threat.
Okay.
It begins and ends with Minor Threat. When I heard Out of Step, I was like, "This is the music I'm going to be listening to for the rest of my life." You know what I mean? That, and so then a lot of those DC bands, but no one sounds like Minor Threat.
Yeah.
I don't know what magical formula. There's a ton of bands that want to sound like Minor Threat, and there's a ton of bands that you could tell are influenced. Tons of bands have named themselves after Minor Threat songs and all that stuff, but no one sounds like Minor Threat. And then the New York thing, Sick It All, Gorilla Biscuits. Oh my God, that Gorilla Biscuits album is it's untouchable.
Yeah.
Front to back, every song, unbelievable. And then I got my thing was I was just a speed freak, and I don't mean the drug. I mean just like the faster the better. So when I discovered DRI, dealing with it, I was like in heaven. Which is, and it just makes a logical progression because like, okay, you've discovered dealing with it. Well, what's faster than that? And eventually the speed tops out, but the extremity kind of keeps going, right? Because then I discover, didn't discover SOD.
Yeah.
But because I was a huge Anthrax fan, I found out they had this side project. I distinctly remember because my buddy Lars, who was my one of my dudes that I hit all the record stores with, and we're always looking for new music, was like, "Dude, I got to get this record. It's guys from Anthrax and guys from, blah, blah, blah." And I bought the vinyl. Back then, if you didn't have, most of them didn't come on CD or anything yet. So, and I didn't have a record player. So I would literally have to take it to my house, put it on my parents' turntable, record it to tape, and then I could listen to it. God, I wish I still had that original SOD.
Oh yeah.
I have a copy now. It ain't the original. But I put it on at his house, and it starts with the March to the SOD, right? Yeah. And here I am like, "Oh, dude, they're supposed to be so fast," but da 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 da. And when it doesn't get fast for a while, he's like, "Oh, dude, you're burnt." And then
it kicks in.
And then he's like, "Oh crap," and they kind of jokingly invented grindcore on that album with the 3-second songs they were doing, right?
Yeah.
And then other people were like, "Oh, that's cool." And then Napalm Death and other bands, but that's what led me there. It's like, oh, there's this band doing this, and then Napalm Death, and then just more and more shooting. In the hardcore thing though, man, I mean, Minor Threat, Gorilla Biscuits, DRI, which I know is a very kind of wide palette. And if you want to take the Minor Threat thing back to SoCal, Uniform Choice.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, Screaming for Change, that record. I just listened to the other day, at work, I always have like an earbud in. Before we open, we can listen to our own music.
Yeah.
And then after, I work at Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
So before we open, you can have one earbud in because you have to still be able to hear the announcements or, not get run over by a pallet jack. You gotta be a little. I just the other day I threw Screaming for Change on, and I'm like, it still holds up. What a great freaking record.
Yeah.
I think, when I'm not listening to something new this year, I've been really trying to the last few years, I've just been on this constant quest for new stuff, where I'm like, man, I'm not even listening to any of my old favorites.
Yeah.
This year, I've been really trying to do that. Like the other day, I went down a Fishbone rabbit hole.
Oh, nice.
Started at the first EP and made it all the way up to the Reality of My Surroundings. And
nice.
What an unstoppable force of nature that band was.
Oh,
I mean, not hardcore in any sense, but Jesus, they were unbelievable. Unbelievable. And but yeah, I listened to Screaming for Change, which then made me listen to Gorilla Biscuits, and I think after that was Youth of Today. Come on.
See, I'm lucky because I have a friend, or we're not friends anymore, but I have a guy that lives here in Kansas City who grew up in New York and is friends with all those guys.
That's awesome.
He's a DMS dude. He grew up with, Stigma and Vinny and good bands. I got lucky over the years. We got to open up for AF one time. We got to open up.
Dude, that's awesome.
Stigma, when he came through, we got to open up for Murphy's Law 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd go to New York with him, and I was there the year Judge got back together.
Nice.
See Judge. I mean, I'm standing in Webster Hall, having lunch by myself, and they just start warming up, and I'm like, oh my God, nobody else is in here but me. Youth of Today got back together, Outbroke, Demise, all those New York legendary bands. So I mean, we got to play with a ton of great bands because
that's awesome
of this guy. That's dope. We've played with Terror, First Blood, Dishonor, Hoods from Sacramento, which it's
funny. There's kind of that weird era where doing Stavesacre and stuff, I kind of almost dipped my head out of the hardcore scene.
Mm-hmm.
And this is gonna be a really controversial statement, but I never got Madball. I never got it. Besides the first 7-inch when they just sounded like Agnostic Front. Well, but basically they were Agnostic Front with Freddie singing.
Exactly.
But after that, I didn't like mid-paced hardcore. I don't like the stompy. I like a good mosh part in a hardcore song, but I don't like the songs that never get fast or bands that never get fast. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, no.
If it's your thing, go crazy. It's just not my thing.
I think their first record is good because it reminds me a lot of Biohazard.
Okay.
And their second 7-inch, Dropping Mad Suckers, I think that's a good 7-inch.
Okay.
And then every now and then they'll have a song or two. I'm like, oh, all right. Yeah, I'm with you. Everybody in New York fucking worships Madball. I mean,
exactly
Madball. And I'm like, man, I've seen Sick of It All here in Kansas City to 300-400 kids. I've seen Sick of It All in New York City to 7,000 people.
Sure.
Sick of It All will always be the kings of New York hardcore.
Always.
They're the best. They've never changed numbers. They've never compromised on style.
Nope. Unstoppable.
They're just
unstoppable.
They're juggernauts,
But yeah, I just kind of fell out. I think I was working at Tower Records. I worked at Tower Records for years, and I'd get promo.
The one in Hollywood or the one down in LA?
I worked at one in Lakewood, California, actually. Lakewood, and then I started at one in Fresno because when the Crucified was up there, and I went down Lakewood. I ran the Westwood store for a little while, and then I was running the Lakewood store when they went out of business. But yeah, I would get promos, and I just none of this new hardcore is really doing it for me because it was all that mid-pace. And I've been talking to Dirk about this somehow. And honestly, I think it was because of the collegiate logo. Mm. When I saw Terror Records, I just assumed that's what they sounded like.
Yeah.
And plus, there was a lot of the tough guy stuff, which was not my thing because I'm not a tough guy.
Yeah.
Because Sick of It All sounds like a tough guy band, but their lyrics aren't tough guy.
Yeah, exactly.
But the tough guy bands want to sound like Sick of It All and be tough, right? And want to be
especially the beat down bands like Bulldoze or
Sure.
I was even that a lot in the early 2000s because I played in a hardcore band called Bully Rag, and then I played in a hardcore band called One Blood, and we were tough guy hardcore, you know, but we were also old skinheads, old sharks, you know, that were for years, you know, being up Nazis when they showed up, and then you know, new kids show up and they want to look like us, but they've never been through anything, you know what I mean? So try and, you know, take the younger kids on, you know, and be like, hey man, this is what you do, this, you know. But at that point in time, the hardcore just got too violent, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, for sure.
And at that point, I just had to step away. I haven't been in the band in about 10 years now. Just, you know, I just don't. I work most times. I have a family.
Sure. You're a grown up. I get it.
The thing is, you know, I'm very, very lucky that through all the years of playing in a band from 17 till 39, I didn't end up in jail or dead.
Yeah, sure.
All the dumb shit we would do, you know.
Right.
I mean, it was just one of those things. Like, I mean, a fight at a show every now and then was one thing, but man, we have, you know, 5-6 fights a night per show, and we're talking.
That just gets old.
Yeah, you know, you know, one time we were opening up for The Business, and I don't know why we were on that show. We shouldn't have been. You know, our band in The Business did not work musically, but yeah, somebody got stabbed at our show, and it was just like, that was one of the things where I was just remember loading up, and I'm just like, man, we're responsible for we're showing these kids that it's okay to act like this,
right?
You know, because they see us out at the bar after we get done playing and we're drunk, and somebody starts talking shit, and then we beat the crap out of them, you know, or something else happens, some other you know.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, I just got to stop doing this, you know.
Yeah. I get it.
A better example. Plus, you know, I didn't want to, you know, at that time I had two little girls, and I'm like, man, I don't want to spend, you know, 20 years in jail for some dumb shit.
Hell no.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. But no, like, so Terror was a band that I just missed, but retroactively has become one of my favorite bands. Because I just kind of went down a rabbit hole of like, okay, I missed a bunch of good hardcore. When Tower Records went out of business, Dirk and I owned a small record store for a year and a half or so until 2008 hit and destroyed the economy, and we decided to close it. But at that point, I was like, I had access to all this music because we owned the record store, so I could like a lot of the records, you know, from small independent labels come in unsealed, so you can listen to them. Plus, we were getting tons of used stuff, so I was just going through and like, oh, I never heard this band, you know, and I don't like it, I love it.
Yeah.
And that's where I discovered, I don't know if you remember the band Go It Alone.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude, Histories is untouchable as far as a modern hardcore album for me. Them and This Is Hell.
Oh,
with, Sundowning.
This is Hell.
Those, unbelievable. And then, but see, even then I didn't discover Terror. It was until a few years later where I was like, something came up and I listened to them like, oh, crap, they got everything I love in hardcore. They're good and fast. They got a great singer. And then I started going down. I'm like, well, I'll go down the rabbit hole. I'll find when they fell off. They've never fallen off. They're incredible to this day. Their last record was a banger. Yep. So, and the way I always put it now that I'm older, is like, you can't listen to everything, man.
Yeah.
You can try, but there is too much music. Yeah. And sometimes you just have to, you know, maybe stop and go, you know, I'm going to kind of go down this rabbit hole. Yeah. When Dirk and I owned Green, that was the name of the record store. One of the things we went through is like a lot of the imports do come in unsealed, and we would like, there's all these bands we just never listened to, these English bands that we just like hadn't checked out, because back when we were coming up, you remember this?
Yeah.
You had to spend good money to find out if a band was good or not.
Yep.
There were no listening station, there was no streaming, there was no YouTube to check shit out. You just gambled your hard-earned money. And if you failed, it was just like, great, here's a record that just goes at the bottom of the pile, and you know.
That's Bane. Like, I know people love Bane. I've never got them. I don't like them. And, you know, when everybody was telling me about Bane, I'm like, awesome. And I bought a couple of records, and I was just like, oh, yeah. It just wasn't my style.
Yeah,
you know?
Sure.
So,
yeah, there's
I saw them open up for Sigma All in New York, and they were awesome live. It's like there's a band from Oxnard right where I grew up called the Warriors. And, and we played with them. I had heard their first CD, and I didn't like it. I was like, I'm not into this band. Saw them live, and they killed. They were 10 times better, but it was just whoever recorded them, the recording sucked.
But wouldn't you say that's true of a ton of hardcore bands?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
they just never, because of the scene, because it was like no one gave a shit,
Yeah.
right? These are tiny regional bands. They didn't have budgets to do much. So you get the record and you're like, I don't understand why everyone loves it. But if you get the chance to see them live, you know, Sick of It All was a rare one that somehow what they do live translated to the record. That is not true of a lot of hardcore bands. Minor Threat definitely got that lightning in the bottle used to today. The ones we think of as those top tier Mount Rushmore bands were because the live and the album could do it. But there's a ton of bands that you'll hear and go, oh man, if you saw them live, I'm sure that's true. But I never saw them live, and the record is kind of ass.
Yeah. I'd say for me, the best hardcore band we got to open for, and we should have been on the bill, was when Terror was still on their lowest of the low demo tour.
Okay.
Best. Blood for Blood. We got to open up for Blood one time, and that was I love Blood for Blood. And you know, I mean, because at that time their mindset was my mindset. I was just a pissed off person, you know.
Sure.
Mad young man, and love Blood.
Well, you know, actually, you know, now that I think about it, what took me back to Terror was being such a huge Nails fan.
Oh, yes.
So you know, you go, oh well, Todd Jones writes some of the best riffs I've ever heard. And he wrote everything on the first album and part of the second album. So I'm gonna go back and listen to those. Oh shit, they're great. And then that's when I was tying it all together. That's why I went back and listened, because dude, that guy. By the way, that first Bloodguilt show in LA was opening for Barbarians of California. I don't know if you've heard of them. So it's a post-hardcore band. It's the dude from AWOL Nation.
Okay.
You know, that song. He came up through the hardcore scene. He just did a bunch of different music. Ended up in a band called I don't even remember what they were called. Another kind of poppy band, because he's a good songwriter. You know, which a lot of guys in hardcore bands were. That's why they left and did other stuff, right? And then he did AWOL Nation, became a big success, but there was like, kind of had this burning to go back and do stuff he loves. So he's doing this post-hardcore band called Barbarians of California. We somehow snuck on the show because of Ray, our singer, who knows everyone. And, but at that show, they had already been on tour. We just met him for this one show in LA. Todd Jones came out and did Roots Bloody Roots with them.
Oh, nice.
So I'm sitting there at sound check, just they're doing their check first. We're just kind of sitting waiting. I look over and I'm like, dude, that guy looks a lot like Todd Jones. That's weird. What's he doing here? And then they're like, okay, let's get Todd up here to sound check Roots. And I'm like, and they get up, and I'm almost alone at this venue for sound check, just watching Todd Jones do Roots Bloody Roots. I'm just like, this is freaking cool, man.
Nails is, and that's the thing. I'm not against new music. It just, there's so many bands that like I hear that I'm like, I see what they're doing, but they don't do it well enough. So I might as well listen to the stuff that I like. You know,
I get it. I get it.
The one band I found a few months ago, which they blew me away. A buddy of mine comes in, he'll always be like, check this band out. I'm like, 6 out of 7, I don't care about. But he pulled up a band called Hell Ripper from Scotland.
Oh yeah, Hell Ripper rules, man.
Oh, man. And that's the first time I was like that day online ordering some stuff. I rarely, you know, I'm like,
no, those guys are great.
That record, you know.
Actually, I think it's just a dude. Like I know he puts together, but you know the record.
That records everything.
Screw that kid.
Yeah, Nails too. Like when I heard Nails, I was like I never thought anybody would come close to Napalm. They are my favorite extreme metal band. That even though every record's a little different, they've never changed. They've always been Napalm. You know,
undeniably one of my Mount Rushmore bands for that type of music, because that's the thing. My taste for the speed just changed to the taste for the extreme. That's why, like, Full of Hell, one of my all-time favorite bands. I love all the permutations, like their, you know, Trumpeting Ecstasy, just undeniable. But then the stuff they did with the body, the stuff they do with like that. I don't know if you heard that album they made with Primitive Man. It's not even a split. It's them doing a record together. So it's a lot of way slowed down, because it's like the Primitive Man sludge with the Full of Hell electronics and vocals. It's monumental, just this juggernaut of a record. Then they did the record with Nothing, which is kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I love how experimental, how prolific. I mean, they just announced another EP that's coming out soon, even though they just put out Coagulated Bliss like what, late last year. They're just they just keep going. And then Nails, what was it, 8 years between records this last time?
Yeah, it was a while. It was a long while.
Well, he got so much backlash because of You Will Never Be One of Us. People got really weird on him. There was this whole, you know, kids today, man, they got in this whole like, you're being gatekeepy, you're being elitist, and Todd is not going to stand for that shit. So he punched back, and I don't want to say he got canceled. He didn't. He just went away. He's like, well, fuck you guys then.
Okay.
And he just walked away for a while. And
I get the message of that song, and that's why I love that song. You know,
100%.
Because, you know,
well, if you've ever seen the video,
you know, yeah.
If you've ever seen the video, all the beginning is dudes from other bands, metal bands, saying "You will never be one of it," and it's not gatekeepy. It's just like there is a tribe mentality, and there are a lot of people who try to like come in at the like what the lyrics, you know, fuck your friends, fuck your trends. He's just saying like, dude, the hardcore, the diehards are the diehards.
Yep.
And that's what it's all about. And I got it. I wasn't like, oh yeah, these people. He's just saying, dude, there's just a certain tribe that's been here forever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people that are
one of us, you'll stay here. You'll be part of it. Yeah.
100%.
Well, it's like, you know, back in like the skinhead movement, you know, you'd see dudes, you know, 1 week at a show, you know, sludging down PBR, you know, gutter punk. Then 2 weeks later, brand new Ben Sherman, you know, with, you know, white jacket that had all their old crusty punk stuff, but then new patches on, you know. And those
I like the guys who went from drinking the PBR 1 week and the next day they're all X'd up, and you're like, really though?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, those guys showed up a lot in Kansas City, and like, my whole thing is, you don't got to lie to kick it. You know what I mean? If you're just getting new into the scene, say you're new into the scene. Don't pretend you've been around forever. You know, you know, especially like, you know, when I'd be like, oh man, do you know this person from this town? Because, you know, we played with Patriot, we played with oh shoot, so many oi bands we played with. We played with Blitz on their last show before the guy got killed. Blitz is an old English oi band.
Oh yeah, I remember Blitz. Not my thing, but I know who they are.
The next they played Kansas City. The next day in Oklahoma, got hit by a bus and died. yeah. So,
you know what though? Like, I bet he doesn't do it again.
Yeah, he does not.
He learned.
It's like, you know, I'd ask questions when I first started hanging out. I'd keep my mouth shut and just say, "Hey, what's this about? What's this about?" You know,
100%.
You're going to get further and get more respect that way than just trying to be phony.
Right, 100%. Yeah, everyone has a first day listening to whatever they're into. Everyone has like the first record they bought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Girl, I just pop out of the womb with this cool music selection. You know what I mean? Like, it's a great thing. You know, we all come from the same thing. You know, we listen to Carmen. We grew up listening to Petra. You know what I mean? We grew up listening to White Cross. You know, and that kind of
God. You know what though? Luckily, I dodged a lot of that stuff. I just didn't. Yeah, I never listened to Carmen. I might have owned a Petra record, but I was really picky. I like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of got lucky that I just didn't. I kind of could smell phonies right away.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, you're not it. You know what I mean? Like, say what you want about Undercover. They were at least real dudes playing music they believed was good.
True.
I don't think Petra was. I think they were dudes faking the funk just to like, to be the Ministry or whatever. Yeah. And they were dicks. So,
well, that sucks. Yeah. That's the thing, you know, in a very evangelical household where we weren't allowed to listen to, so we had to take what we got.
Yeah.
And you like, I got to interview him because he's still one of my favorite artists. I love Steve Taylor. Steve Taylor's
dude, hell yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, like, I got to interview him probably about 8-9 months ago, and he was a great guy, but like, his music was always legit. You know what I mean?
100%. He's a true artist.
Yeah,
a great songwriter. Great song.
And that's the thing, you know. You go to the Christian bookstore and you got, well, there's Striper and Bloodguilt, and don't get me wrong, those were the marijuana gateway bands to, you know. But then Vengeance and Crucified and Charlie and Mortification, I will say they were like you and Mortification, I think were the two most legit Christian bands that were not in message, but in sound and appearance.
Gotcha.
I could take Pillars to go skateboarding with my homeboys and wouldn't get shit. There's no way I would play Striper with those guys. You know what I mean? I could play Mortification with, especially at that age when you're trying to be a good witness. Like, hey man, you like Slayer? Listen to this. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah. Mortification. Their first two records, I think, were just juggernauts. They were good, tactical, real death metal. They weren't screaming like Vengeance. They weren't, they weren't punk like you guys. They weren't.
Yeah.
And I love Jimmy and I love Deliverance, but they weren't that high tone. I mean, they were legit death metal band.
So. Yeah. It's funny too. I should go back and listen to them because I didn't like. My journey into death metal was kind of weird. I didn't get it at first because I kept thinking, because death metal at the beginning was like a thrash and it branched off from thrash to be more extreme. But I thought, well, that means it's going to be faster. And most of it wasn't. They kind of went for the groovier. So when I heard Obituary, when I heard, I don't know, Morbid Angel, I was always like, and then I heard Deicide, who was faster, but I just didn't, I'm sure part of it was I was turned off by, the overt Satanism. Mm-hmm. But I even go back now that I love CFQ. It just doesn't connect to me. Part of it's Glenn's voice. Although I've heard stuff he's sung on that isn't his that I think is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It took me a while. It wasn't until Cannibal Corpse was my gateway, was my marijuana gateway drug, as you put it, to like, okay, so if I find this kind of stuff, I'll like it. And now it's one of my favorite genres of just going down that rabbit hole looking for the next thing that's going to blow my socks off. But usually it's like when Cannibal puts out a new record.
Yeah. Well, especially with the extreme, this gotten so extreme, especially with like bands like Cattle Decapitation and Relics and all that. I mean, like there's stuff like I don't like noodly math metal at all. I don't like it. It's too chaotic for me.
Okay.
It gives me a headache. I don't like screamo. If I'm doing intense, I want to hear guttural vocals. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's what I dig. But there's a lot of really insane fast bands, but I'm like, but if it makes no sense and it's not a good song,
correct,
consider how fast you're playing.
Right.
So for me, a lot of that really extreme grindcore, more like I just can't get into it.
Yeah, it can get to, and especially depending on how it's produced, like a lot of the super technical death metal can get to the point where it's like, dude, you didn't play that. Like the drums, you're like that. I mean, it's just a clicky trigger. Yeah. It just sounds like a typewriter. It's like, come on, man. Yeah. But I love Cattle Decap. I love
those two records are great.
Well, I really love what they do now because I love not only his gutturals, but I love his singing voice, that kind of goblin. Mm-hmm. Like it's still growly, but it's like this cool. Yeah, I love them. I love what's the other one that I don't know. There's too many freaking bands, man. There's just
Napalm and Carcass will always be the best.
Oh yeah. Although I saw Carcass a couple years ago and they couldn't have looked more bored on stage. I was so bummed. Yeah. It was a bummer too, because it was a good show. It was like Gate Creeper, who I really like, a newer band, and I forget who else was on that bill. It was a good show. Oh, Municipal Waste.
Oh, nice.
So fun live. And you see him in Denver. So their singer just kept talking about how he was out of breath because, he just drove a mile up. So he's just like, I don't know how you do it, Denver. Yeah. But they were just, they got that party thrash thing going and they're super fun. They were great. Gate Creeper was great. And then by the time Carcass got out there, it's only at that time, there's only 2 original members. It's just like I think what's his name? The other guitar player is back now, but at this point it was only 2. And the singer, bass player, he just looked bored. And he kept getting mad that the crowd wasn't into it. I was like, dude, it's the energy you're putting out. That's what they're giving back to you.
Yeah.
You look bored. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, but they played the songs we wanted to hear.
Yeah, and they do it well.
Exactly. My wife got a cool shirt that wasn't on the back. It's like still rotten to the gore. Yeah. And it's funny too. Like I've only been collecting vinyl a few years now. I resisted the urge forever, but I just finally couldn't. I finally got back into it.
Good. It just sounds so good.
And I've been buying, those bands. I'm trying to curate, like, get those bands, get the bands that, like, Minor Threat, Out of Step should be listened to on vinyl.
Yes.
This record should be. And I was collecting, like, I'm trying to get all the Napalms, and I'm trying to get all the Carcass. I think I'm one record away. Yeah, I just need Swan Song, which isn't their best record, but I need it for the collection.
Yeah.
I'm one record away, and then they put out a box set of all their stuff. I'm like, you know what, dude? Screw you. And they're all on these really cool colors. I'm like, you know what?
Dude, I could have bought this one thing and been done. But I like the hunt. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
I dig like finding stuff. When I was back home last summer, back in Ventura, there's a huge record store called Salzer's Records. Right off the 101, and my sister used to work there, and so I go back there, and they're one of the only few places that really sell a shit ton of vinyl. I like going to Amoeba, but I don't. Like down in Hollywood, like
it's hard to get through.
Well, they moved now. They're not in the big location. They moved down.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, about 2 years ago, and it's even smaller location now.
That's probably helpful. You could probably get through it all in a day.
It's actually not, because everything is so close. You can't get through the browse. And they had a really good system at the old location. Now it's all kind of mixed together, where you're looking through metal through like the popular stuff, and like it's kind of weird. So, but yeah, there was a band. I just from the cover I saw the vinyl. They were called Dead Heat, and it was and they're
new like crossover type band.
Yeah, and I was like, it was $8. I'm like, I'm gonna buy it. And the guitar player worked at the store. He was like, oh, that's my band. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, I'm listening to it. I was like, fucking, they're kids. They're like 18, 19-year-olds. Yeah, man.
Dude, that just happened to me here in Portland. There's this band that Dirk turned me on to called Long Knife. I don't know if you've heard of them. Dude, when we get off here, look up Long Knife and their album Curb Stomp Earth.
Ooh.
Kind of a terrible cover, but kind of works for the music. It's just, imagine a slightly speedier Poison Idea at their height.
Okay.
Just killer. I mean, this record is just a banger from start to finish.
Nice.
And they're from Portland. When we moved here, it was like within a month they were playing a show. I was like, damn, I just couldn't go.
Yeah.
And then they put out a collection of some early singles. I got that. Well, it was my birthday a few months ago, and my wife and I were out. We went to this local little punk rock record store. And so I'm like, well, they have to have a Long Knife section. They're local. And sure enough, I'm like, there's a few EPs that don't have, you whip out your Discogs to see, like, oh yeah, these EPs aren't on that collection. So I'm going to get these 2 EPs, pick up the new Cure record, pick up
new Cure record is so good.
My God, it's unbelievable.
So good.
And I got to see them finally. They were amazing. But I have this stack because it's my birthday. My wife kind of lets me go off.
Yeah.
We have this stack. We go up, and I hand it to the guy at the counter. And on top is the 2 Long Knives. He's like, oh, did you go to the show last night? I'm like, no, a buddy of mine hit me up, but he hit me up at the show. Like, oh, I should have told you Long Knives playing tonight. I'm like, thanks, bro. Little heads up next time.
Yeah.
And so we start talking, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't know how these EPs are, but Curb Stomp Earth is just like one of my favorite hardcore records of probably the past 5-10 years. He's like, oh, and he said some stuff that was more we than they. So finally I go, I'm gonna take a little stab here. Are you in Long Knife? He's all, yeah, I play drums. I'm like, well, huge fan. Obviously, never seen a picture of you guys. So, man, great to meet you. And he ended up like chilling out, giving me all these like great tips on the scene and like what clubs did what. And actually, that record store, there was a record store. It's called Blackwater Records. Then there's also a club called Blackwater that's like this really cool vegan bar that hosts shows and stuff. Okay. Well, they're associated, and they just moved into a bigger location so they can all be in one big space. And I got to go check that out soon. Yeah. But same thing where the dude was like super chill about the fact that I was buying 2 of his EPs, and like finally I had to ask. He wasn't just like, oh, this is my band. I was like, wait, you didn't say they're really cool. You're like, yeah, we had fun doing this. I'm like, oh, I heard we in there.
Drop, I heard you.
Seriously though, Long Knife, Curb Stomp Earth. Anyone who's listening, Curb Stomp Earth. It is unbelievable. What a great record.
Oh, it's so good. Well, let me ask you this. I've got about 10, 15 more minutes and I got to get to work. love talking. I love talking music with people that are like-minded. You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's so always funny. Like I was giving Jimmy and Larry shit in Vegas this week because I was telling them I'll be doing you and I'm doing. I can't remember who I'm doing next week, but I was like, these guys at least. I was like, Larry, like, what got you into metal? And he's like, well, I like Blue Oyster Cult and that kind of stuff. I'm like, like that's the reason like I liked metals because I found Christian metal, but then it gave me a more reach into the secular realm. But I'm like, like a lot of you guys you don't know your metal. It's like, like you guys just heard Metallica and were like, fuck, we're just gonna do what they're doing because that's successful, or we do. They know the big four. They know Slayer,
right?
Metallica, Testament, and Anthrax. But I'm like,
ooh, I like how you replaced Megadeth with Testament. That's a much better big four.
Oh yeah, Megadeth's always sucked.
Thank you.
Megadeth's always sucked. I mean, he was great in Metallica. He wrote some really great stuff early on.
Agreed. I don't care.
Like one half decent record, but yeah, just his voice always just bothered me.
Oh, it's the worst. Yeah. And from what I understand, he's just a tool of a human being. So
yeah,
so there's that.
Yeah, Megadeth's just always just like, for me, if I'm going the big four, Slayer will always be king. Always. You're not going to beat Slayer. Not in any not in any way, shape, or form. I don't give a fuck how many Metallica records have been sold, dude. Metallica hasn't put out a good record since Injustice for All.
They've put out some good songs, but no good records.
I don't even care at this point. Like when you get a band, 90% of your career that's been worse than when you were good, it doesn't even matter. You know what
That's
I mean?
Fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Plus, I just think Lars is a douche, and I think fucking James is an uber douche. So I'm like, I don't even, but what was when you first started having the feelings of maybe I don't really believe what I've been taught anymore? What was that journey for you? I'll give you a quick one of mine.
Okay.
Growing up in the church, didn't really start questioning anything until I was about 15 or 16. Then I had some serious questions, and I could never get answers. You know what I mean? Like, I remember my parents dragging me down to see Benny Hinn, the faith healer.
Oh God.
And I was like, I think I was like 13 at that time though. And I was driving home and I look at my mom. I'm like, well, if God's there and loves us and wants to heal us, I'm like, why doesn't he just heal everyone? Why do you have to go on stage and be a spectacle? And why did you get the golden ticket that God's going to heal you, but not everybody else, And they're, of course, the standard, well, it's God's plan and we don't know God's plan, just, they don't have the answer and they don't want to seem stupid. So they're not going to tell you that they don't have the answer.
Right.
So, but like I said, by the time I was 20, I was not going to church anymore, but still had Christian friends and still listening to Christian bands. But by the time I was 24, it was just, and I'll be 49 this year. And I don't think I became really hardcore atheist up until about 10 years ago. But I was kind of like, whatever, I don't believe. But now it's like, not only do I not believe it, but I think that Christianity, Mormonism, Catholicism, a lot of the big four religions, I think they're detrimental. And I think they're harmful.
I agree. Especially now with what we're seeing with the Trumpy Christians and it's disgusting. Honestly, I've seen some people that I used to really respect talk about, God using Trump, and I throw up in my mouth every time. I'm just like, you got to be fucking kidding me, man. That you can look at anything that's. I don't understand it. I've never had anyone be able to explain it to me. It makes me ill.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, my journey was much later. I'm 56. I turned 56 in January. And it's only been probably during, I hadn't gone to church for a long time. And I know everyone goes, see, that's why. No, it's just because I got tired of all the BS. I drifted from church to church, just looking for something that felt really real. And, in Southern California, if you're not in some kind of mega church, and I mean that in the most derogatory way, you're probably in some little Calvary chapel, which is cool because you have this little tribe of people, but you don't get much out of it more than the social aspect and some, the guy reading the same stories over and over. It's, like the joke, it's a book club that's been studying the same book for hundreds of years now.
Never heard that. That's great.
Yeah. The first Trump term and heading into the first Trump term really got me questioning some stuff, because I'm like, this isn't lining up at all with what I was taught. And these people are claiming to be Christians, and I don't understand how you and I are both saying we're Christians and you're going with this guy, and I can't see how it lines up at all. And it got me questioning some of that. But also at the same time, it was like little dominoes started falling. And I've never believed in anything supernatural except God. So then it just kind of became like, well, but why? Why just that one thing? And that domino kind of started falling. I started doing a little more research and studying and watching some videos online of people that like kind of maybe some ex-evangelical people kind of breaking down. And then, it all just started falling apart. As it starts falling apart, and I don't know if this was true for you, it's like you'll question a lot of it. You'll question the church. You'll question a lot of the Bible, but you kind of reserve Jesus as like, well, he's okay. He's a good teacher, but you kind of hold him off as like the last thing that you're going to question. You'll question the church. You'll question the document, but Jesus, that's still, and then finally it just became like but there's no real there either, because I kind of, as I'm reading the Bible, going, well, why isn't he correcting them on all the wrong shit? And then you realize, well, because this stuff was written years after it all happened. One of the worst ones is when I finally sat down and read that whole thing where they went into the garden the night before and he's praying, Father, take this from me.
Yeah.
And the disciples keep falling asleep and he keeps going back and saying, can't you just stand watch with me? I finally was like, who wrote this? Jesus was by himself praying, but we're getting an account of what he said.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, maybe he told someone later. Maybe he told one of the apostles, which seems weird that he would tell them what he prayed. And then you find out, well, it wasn't even written by the people whose names are on the books. Mm-hmm. They were written by people later. So you're telling me that what I'm supposed to believe is that someone went and prayed, and then after their death, more than 70 years later, someone who wasn't there wrote an account that they heard from someone who was there asleep. What are we talking about? Yeah. And you can try to get into the whole divine inspiration, but it's like, who? We don't even know who wrote it. Yeah. And we're just supposed to, it just doesn't add up. And a big one I heard was someone going through the whole, like, the slavery thing in the Bible. Mm-hmm. They were like, what's worse, owning a person or eating shellfish? What's worse, owning a person or wearing something with mixed cloth? Mm-hmm. What's worse, owning a person or cutting the fringes of your hair? Yep. Because there's prohibitions in the Bible on all of these, but none about owning slaves. Yep. And then you watch the Christians dance around the ball and say, no, it tells you in the Old Testament, you can go into these villages, you can take slaves.
And if you count their year, then they're for 7 years. I mean, yeah, Exodus 24, 21, 25.
All the things, man. It's like, you're telling me in the 10 Commandments, it was more important to obey your parents than he could have slipped in at 11 and said, hey, by the way, don't own people. Mm-hmm. That wasn't important enough.
Yeah.
And then when Jesus comes along, he didn't say, oh, by the way, don't own people.
Yeah.
He never one time.
No, and let's even get a little bit more graphic than that. Okay. Don't molest your kids. Don't beat your wife. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, slavery is not just a tipping point, but I mean, there's so many other things that are just so immoral that God allows. Like, I've asked this, and many times, it's like the two stories that piss me off the most. And when people say, well, you're just mad at God, I'm like, no, I'm not mad at God.
No, not at all.
They've created these stories because they've created the situation that we have on this planet.
Right.
First of all, the story of Job. Why would, if I came to you and said, hey, man, I don't think your wife loves you enough, I'm going to bet you $1 million if I do these atrocities to you, she'll still love you. And you're like, fuck yeah, let's do that. I mean, like, what kind of just disgusting kind of mindset is that? And then that really bothers me is the story of it's not Seth, Sodom and Gomorrah with the angels. They're freaking out and they're going after. It's not Seth. I can't remember his name, but the crowd's going to basically rape these angels.
Oh yeah, Lot.
There we go. Thank you. Lot says, no, take my daughters. I have 2 daughters. There's no way in hell that I would ever say that. And one that just shows what they thought of women back then to begin with. And
so they were property.
Yeah, exactly. They were worth nothing. And then what kind of would make that acceptable to say, no, take these, and God's going, yes, he's a good Christian because he's protecting. They're just gonna pull out their fucking fiery swords or whatever and did whatever angels do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of those. There's a story that I just stumbled across. Again, it's one of those ones that I'm sure when you read it, you just kind of gloss over it. But there's the guy that's traveling through and he stops with his maidservant, and they end up giving her to the townspeople because they're trying to protect. It's not Lot. It's another one where they want to rape him, and he gives his maidservant. He comes in the morning and she's dying at the door. And so he ends up cutting her into 12 pieces and sending a piece to each tribe of Israel to remind them of what they did. And that's the end of the story. There's no moral. That's just what he did. I'm like, how did this make it in the book? Why? And I'm sure some pastor can pull something. I was like, but this is what you wrote.
Yeah.
But also you just get into the whole plugging a power strip into itself. And why isn't it powering? The Bible's true because the Bible says it's true.
Yeah.
There's no cooperation. Dude, there was no flood. There just wasn't. We have so many civilizations who existed before that and show no interruption in their civilization. So that whole thing falls apart. And yet later in the New Testament, these people are quoting it as in the days of Noah. It's like, but that didn't happen. So
all you're hearing an audible story because most people couldn't read back then. So how was traditions, put down through generations through stories, through somebody telling a story.
Well, and the creation account, plants were created before light.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It doesn't add up. It's the sheep herder's guide to the galaxy. Mm-hmm. I get it. A pre-Iron Age civilization just trying to figure shit out. It's like in the Noah story. It feels to me like it's no different than a Norse myth.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Why do we have rainbows? Because that's the bridge to Valhalla.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have rainbows? Because this horrible thing happened and God promised this, right? It's just something you tell people to keep them on.
Yeah.
Hey, let's not just keep raping and murdering each other. We got to be good people. And here's why, because there's people up here that are telling us to be good or whatever. But it doesn't work. So you're telling me God changed the properties of refracted light after the flood so that it made a rainbow. Yeah. It's like, it just doesn't add up. And again, for me, it came down to the last pillar falling of I've seen no evidence in my life of anything supernatural. And that extends to God. I've seen no evidence of it. And you can have all the arguments, but what about the trees? It's like, dude, we know how that stuff works now. We understand the natural processes that brought these things to be. And then they always get back, well, how far back? Yeah, we don't know now, but we didn't know a bunch of stuff before that. And now we do. And eventually, will science ever know where we started? Maybe. But you just become really comfortable with saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
How did the universe begin? I don't know.
Lazy person's, excuse to not one really do the research or even just try and question themselves.
Right.
It's just very much. It's easier to say because Sky Daddy says that's it.
God did it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That just became not a good enough answer for me anymore. And not only that, dude, but all the people I had been told my whole life were the bad people, the atheists. Mm-hmm. Let's just be un-PC for a minute because I'm going to use the terms I was reading. The gays.
Yes.
The whatever group. Why is it that all those people, when I finally met them in real life, were way better people than a lot of the Christians I had been raised around? Mm-hmm. Why are most of the atheists I knew just good people? Only because being good feels good. And being good has a better result for them and their community, not because someone sent it down.
Or being scared of damnation or in return getting a reward.
Why are all of the trans people I know some of the sweetest, kindest people I know in the world? Why are all my gay friends they've been just shit on their whole lives by institutions, and they're still persevering and being some of the kindest people. It's not adding up. I was told these are the people that were going to like make my life worse, and it's like instead they're some of the best people I know. It just doesn't add up.
Like worse, they're going around spreading lies saying that these people are dangerous.
Yeah,
that's scary part.
100%.
Yeah, that you hang out with the trans person. How many trans molestation cases have I ever ran into on the news? Not fucking one. How many from the Catholic Church? You know what I mean?
Insane.
How much shit do you hear about a Swaggart, a Falwell, Ted Jones, a fucking Ted Haggard, all these major Christian figures, and I'm like, well, you can't judge this whole thing by one thing. It's like, okay, but I'm judging it on a very mass scale of these people that are always getting caught doing what they're not supposed to do. But I don't see this guy in George, hurting anybody.
But using that same logic, well, then you're saying there's going to be all this trouble with trans people. You're judging the whole thing when it hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want trans women in the bathroom because of this thing that hasn't happened. It's just been fear-mongering. I'm saying don't go to the Catholic Church because the odds are they're going to molest your kids. And you go, oh, you're judging them what? But it did happen.
Yeah.
You're saying we can't have trans women in the bathroom because they might. It's never happened.
Exactly.
So why is my fear less founded than your fear?
Yeah.
Because you've been told to fear these people. And it's like, have you met them? Have you hung out with these people and realized they're just people trying to get along on Earth, the same as you? And just
there's despicable people in every line of
every group.
Yeah.
Every group, man.
The hate and the fear is just something that I couldn't live with anymore. And I had
correct. That was a big part of it for me too. And I think I hung in as long as I did because I had a good support system of people. But then when I finally like I said, man, that first heading into the first Trump administration, just seeing what came out during that election and then him winning and going, man, there's really that many shitty people in this country. Yeah. And then this second one, I mean, I was already done, but this second one just blew my mind. I was like, I can't believe.
Well, the first time, I didn't even think it was going to happen. I was like, there's no way this can happen.
No way. Yeah, same.
Yeah. It's like we, woke up in a weird version of Red Dawn America. You know what I mean? We're getting attacked by our own people, Yeah. The second one, I knew once Biden dropped out, I'm like, he won. It's over.
I held out hope. I really thought we were more advanced. I really thought there was enough good people that would be like, yes, this, I don't even want to get into it. It caught me off guard. I was like, wow, there's still that many shitty people that didn't learn the first time, huh? They're that misogynistic and racist that they'd rather have this doofus than a black woman.
Yeah. Homophobic, racist, sexist, bigoted,
Well, and if we're fair, brainwashed.
Yes.
Max and Fox have done an amazing job of just dividing this country right down the middle into something. If you see the average person at those Trump rallies and stuff, they don't know anything about the world around them except what's been told to them by Fox. And you're just like, how can you really believe that? How can you really believe? What was that stupid thing RFK said yesterday?
Oh,
they shut down the HHS because they had been sex trafficking children. It's like, dude, you said it. There's not going to be any consequences for you for saying it, but for all of us on the ground who have to deal with these people day to day, now there's another thing that they have just locked into their brain as true.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks.
Yeah,
it sucks.
Hey guys, it did happen. You know what I mean? There was no basement at the Alamo. Pee Wee Herman told us that in 1985,
Right. And there's no basement at that pizza parlor.
Exactly.
God.
And I will say, I just don't, and not talking bad on any friends of yours that are still Christians and whatnot, but there's a couple that I've interviewed where I'm just like, you people have to be fucking crazy if you believe this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, point to where, putting hands and they're like, I've healed people. Like, you haven't.
No, you haven't. You haven't.
You're either delusional or you're lying.
Yeah.
Be an asshole, but it's like, why are there no fucking psychics that are billionaires? Because they don't,
Yeah.
That's why there's no faith healers at fucking hospitals. Because it doesn't fucking work.
Why aren't, the day that Benny Hinn or any of those dudes just walks into a child's cancer ward and comes out with all healed children, I'm open to talking to you.
Oh,
But the fact that they don't do that, give me a good reason why they don't do that. Why don't they, in every town they go to on their crusade, walk into the children's cancer ward and heal them all and bring them out?
Yeah.
Don't tell me it's like, well,
no money.
No
money.
No. There's no good reason why they can't do that. And all the stories of these I just saw one the other day where they were claiming about some woman who like grew back something. It's like, cool, let's see the pictures of before and let's see no, never. Funny how all the real miracles like that just dried up as soon as cameras got invented, huh?
Yeah, exactly. We live in an age where we can capture anything at any time, but
can't get any of that.
Yeah, there's no recollection, and there's no way of this guy being brought back to life. There's no way.
It's
I'm gonna let you go, my friend. I got to head out to work. I got some appointments, but thanks for doing this for me, my friend. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate your time, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out. Thanks for being so patient with me. For those who don't know, Simon's been trying to hook this up for months. So I appreciate your patience.
People are like, well, who can interview? Like, I do this show for me. I don't care if I get 1 million followers. I like having conversations with people.
Sure.
So I mean, like, they're like, well, why don't you, talk to this guy? I don't want to talk to that guy. Like, people from there are like, well, get the guy from Undercover. I'm like, I never liked Undercover. I won't have anything to say to him. You know what I mean? I'm
right.
Like, hey man, like that one record they did 87. What up? Like I won't have anything to say. So that's why
I get it.
I'll be persistent with people I want to talk to because you actually, I mean, first tattoo, still have it.
Right? Nice. Mine's right here.
I was 14. My parents took me for my 14th birthday. I know.
You wouldn't tattoo a 14-year-old.
Me, no, not today, but this is 1990, man. What are you going to do in 1990?
There was no rules back then?
No, especially in California, there were no fucking rules. It was great. I miss those days. But yeah, it's just like, and I appreciate you, letting me bug you. And,
part of it, though, is because you were so insistent, but so politely so, and long-suffering about it. It was never like, come on, dude. And I just felt like, man, and I'm being honest, there were a couple of days where the head just wasn't in the right place. There was one of the last times is like, do you just having a black day up here? You do not. And so again, I just really appreciate your patience. This conversation has been awesome. Yeah. I don't know if you saw it, but I just emailed you my phone number right before we got on to make comms a little easier. So should, you want to shoot me a text, keep talking about music, let me know what you think along nights.
Yeah, I'm going to look that up on my way to work.
Yeah, so you got my phone number now so we can stay in contact. And if you're at Kansas City, I might, you never know. I might end up in Kansas City and I still got some untattooed skin, so you never know.
I'm there. If you ever need a place to crash, you're more than welcome.
Awesome, dude.
All right, take care, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks, bro. All right.